Kathryn Johnston, born June 26, 1914, in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, died November 21, 2006, at the age of 92, in her Atlanta home. Mrs. Johnston was an elderly woman from Atlanta, Georgia, who was killed by undercover police officers in her home on Neal Street in Northwest Atlanta on November 21, 2006, where she had lived for 17 years. 3 officers had entered her home in what was later described as a botched drug raid. Much of her life is unknown, but at the time of her death, she was living alone at that home on Neal Street located in Northwest Atlanta. On November 21, 2006, at around 7 p.m., Atlanta undercover police officers Jason R. Smith, Greg Jerner, and Arthur Tisler raided her home in plainclothes, wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying riot shields, according to the officers' police report. The 3 officers entered without knocking or identifying themselves, searching for a man who had reportedly been selling illegal drugs at the residence. Johnston fired 1 shot from a revolver, and then the officers returned fire, shooting 39 times. Johnson was hit 6 times and killed instantly. People speculated living in the neighborhood that the police had the wrong house during the raid, but the police denied the idea. They said that the undercover police officer has purchased drugs at that home earlier that day. The police stated that they got the no-knock warrant because they believed that their suspect would have otherwise had the evidence if they was able to be allowed to let them know that they was about to enter the premises. Ms. Johnston's neighbors also stated that she was an elderly woman and she kept that revolver for self-defense, that another elderly woman had just been armed nearby. So come to find out, after they have did this heinous crime, they found no drugs there. One of the officers decided that maybe it was a good idea to go find and plant it at the scene. So this is the last photo of the home that I can find when Miss Johnston had it. Now it changed because an organization called Hay has purchased the property. We'll get more into that later on in the video. But everything was left the same and everything. And just let's keep it real. The person, if they did out of Mrs. Johnston's house, feel worse than anything to have caused this. Once again, I want to send my prayers and my condolences out to the family. So I'm going to bring up a few videos about what actually the news said happened. And also a neighbor who painted a mural on that white cardboard right there. It had actually came up missing. And that was really sad part of the story as well.
A church celebrates Kathryn Johnston Day. It's on their program. And if you look behind me here at the church, it's on their sign.
Her life was taken.
Senior pastor Anthony Motley says the church refuses to forget a tragedy 11 years ago that made headlines around the world.
She was one of the grandmothers of the English Avenue community. It was a tragic murder, killing, break into her home. It was the serving by the Atlanta Police Department of a no-knock warrant that went terribly awry.
Johnston's shooting death by Atlanta police during a botched drug raid led to manslaughter charges and prison for several officers and a nearly $5 million settlement from the city of Atlanta. But Motley is finding light in that dark situation.
Human beings, God's children, live in this community. Her death helped to wipe out the stigma. Out of the ugliness of it has come some beauty.
In response to Johnston's death, Motley says business leaders and his church teamed up through the Friends of English Avenue organization to lift up the community through gardens, education, and police presence.
A woman's legacy has vanished. Kathryn Johnston became a national figure when police killed her in a botched drug raid 10 years ago.
Each year, the lights twinkle and shine around Kathryn Johnston's Neal Street house.
They keep the yard cut. They keep up with the property. So I mean that's good.
But nobody's home.
It's been vacant.
Nobody's been home since she was killed. Kathryn Johnston was 92 years old in 2006 when an Atlanta police SWAT team conducted a botched drug raid, bursting into the woman's home, gunning her down, claiming an informant tipped them off to illegal activity. Johnston's killing led to the indictments of several officers, the dismantling of an entire APD unit, and a $4.9 million settlement with her small family from the city of Atlanta.
And while everything remains intact at 933 Neal Street, from the manicured lawn to the vintage car parked out front, the portrait cementing Johnston's legacy is gone.
As you know, it's missing. Someone took the painting. It needs to be back.
Jansen Robinson had known Johnston his entire life.
When I come down Neal Street, it's where I call home.
The artist is third-generation Neal Street. When he bought his grandmother's home in 2008, he made sure people saw Kathryn Johnston each day.
Very strong, independent.
Inside Robinson's home, Johnston's name joins hundreds of murder victims, so the conversation on civil rights tragedies is never the elephant in the room. Outside his home, in Johnston's front window, his painting turned a manslaughter scene into a memorial. And right before the 10th anniversary of her death, he tended to Johnston.
I had to touch up the lipstick on her portrait.
Soon after, in October, the portrait vanished.
Another shock.
Maybe someone took it to memorialize her elsewhere. Maybe it was out of ill intent. Maybe the police report filed would lead to some tips.
And then it swung all the way to the other end of the spectrum. Someone loved it that much that they had to have it for themselves. Had no idea. I mean, not knowing was the most difficult part of that.
The easy part is thinking of what to do next.
That one is, it meant a lot, but it won't stop me from painting another one. It'll be better than the last one. And if they take that one, I'll paint another one after that. You cannot kill Kathryn Johnston's memory.
So, like I said, it's limited information on this story. But on February the 7th, 2007, the 3 officers went on trial for the murder of Kathryn Johnston. Fulton County District Attorney Paul L. Howard Jr. brought felony murder and burglary indictments against the officers. During the trial, prosecutors claimed one of the officers planted 3 bags of marijuana to counter the fact that no other drugs were found in the residence. Prosecutors also argued that after the shooting, Officer Jason Smith called an informant, Alex White, and told him to falsely report that he had purchased crack in Johnston's home earlier in the day.
A home that belonged to a woman who was shot and killed by police will soon be the new home for an organization that helps Atlanta youth. It's on Neal Street, where Kathryn Johnston lived.
Fox 5's Denise Dillon went to the home to talk to the organization that plans to use it for youth mentorship.
Leaders of Helping Empower Youth, or HEY, are working alongside some of the teens they mentor, cleaning up and making repairs on this home on Neal Street in Atlanta. This is the home where 92-year-old Kathryn Johnston lived. The home where she was shot and killed 15 years ago by police when they were serving a no-knock warrant and went to the wrong home. Now the house will have a new beginning, helping Atlanta teens get on the right path.
We teach life skills, job readiness, and critical thinking using primarily a STEM discipline. We help them find part-time jobs, encourage them to stay in school.
Quinn Hush has been part of the program for about a year and a half.
I learned a lot with it. I learned how to entrepreneurship, how to do stuff myself, how to maintain my respect, talk to people.
For the past 10 years, HEY has been helping teens, mostly boys, from the West Side. Many of the young men they mentor are the same ones seen around town selling water at intersections.
So they're the ones who we will be serving primarily, but when the house is open, it will be available to all young people who want the services.
The house has been largely untouched since the night Miss Kathryn Johnston lost her life.
Some of Kathryn Johnston's things are still in the home. The calendar on the wall is from 2006. The teens in the HEY program have learned about what happened here, and while this will be their new beginning, they won't forget about a 92-year-old woman whose life came to a tragic end.
We want to do our best to preserve her legacy.
In the 10 years they've been in existence, HEY has never had a permanent location, but they're hoping by the end of the summer, 933 Neal Street will be their new home.
In memory of an elderly woman who was shot by police, officials broke ground on the Kathryn Johnston Memorial Park today. Atlanta undercover police officers fatally shot Kathryn Johnston back in 2006 during a drug raid. The park, which will be on Proctor Street, is close to the home where Johnston died.
course, as her murder was. I am so very happy that on the other side of this, we are doing something to honor her memory and to honor the vision that she had for this community. And it was to be a safe place for our families and especially our children.
Let your light shine, shine, shine. Oh, let your light shine, shine, shine. It may be someone down in the back, just trying to get home. Oh, it may be your brother, it may be mine. You ought to let your little light shine. It may be someone down in the back.
Tonight, why are we doing the Walk of Love this evening? Because of Miss Johnson? Yes. And what happened to Miss Johnson? She was selling drugs. No, they thought she was selling drugs out of her home? Yeah. And what happened to her? The police shot her for no reason. That's correct. So what we're trying to do in the community, walk in the community tonight, to say that we're coming together, whether the young as well as the old, to let the community know that we are here for them, and also to let them know that we are still behind them. We're helping them to grow, that the police prevalence is visible, but the community has a long way to go. So although you're 9 years old and this happened November 21st, 2006, you can say that you did the March of Love down to Lindsay Street to her home as well, okay? All right.
Make sure you tap in to the next buzz.